And first of all, welcome to the Educate for Life sprint in 2020. I'm very excited about the second sprint we are running together as a community. I cannot wait really to get started, and we are starting now. So isn't that fantastic? I also want to just acknowledge here OpenEXO and the whole exponential organizations movement, which many of you are part of, not all of you, but many of you are. And the sprint methodologies that we're building on in this sprint, and to a large extent, our community um, is really coming out of hard work and fun work and transformative collaboration in the OpenExo community for years now. So there's been a lot of hard work done to actually create the sprint methodology that we are using in this sprint, and many of our community members are from the same community. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's been part of making all this happen and creating this Educate for Life community. And with that, let me roll the video. There we go. I didn't film it myself, but I did do this basic editing. So welcome to this Awake session for this Educate for Life sprint. Here's the agenda for today or tonight, wherever you are. I'll give you a little welcome here, and then I'll talk a bit about preparing our population for the future, which I think holds a lot of opportunity and also a lot of challenges. And I believe that through education we can solve a lot of the greatest challenges that we are facing. I also think we can create a significantly better future for our populations. So I think we are talking and working on something extremely important for us as individuals, as a community, but for the whole world. I think we are capable of driving change in our community. So I think we have the responsibility, but also I know we have the passion to do it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see happening right now and give some examples from the massive change that's going on, some of the technologies behind this change. Then we're going to do a community exercise together, and maybe we'll do it in silence, like Curtis suggested. A great experience from doing that, and it is individual work, so I think that would work well. We'll get to that, and then I'm going to briefly introduce exponential organizations, because it is the foundation that we're building this sprint on, and a lot of the work we're going to do. And that's obviously for those of you who are not as familiar with exponential organizations. Some of you are masters of these methodologies, but not everybody is. So I'm going to give a very brief introduction, and I'm going to go more into that on Wednesday, where we have the Align workshop. So it's just going to be a brief introduction today. I'm going to also talk a little bit about what we're going to do on Wednesday, and then there's time, I'm sure, for questions and answers, and then we'll wrap the session of today. So let's dive in here, and we are going in this sprint to have hands-on, which is why I picked this beautiful image here. We're going to put our hands on the problems out there, and we are going with the same hands to create new solutions to solve some of the challenges that seem to be impossible to solve. But we will do our best, and I think we can. And often we get surprised by what is suddenly possible. Things that wasn't possible even months or weeks ago can be possible today. And we're going to see some examples of that. Let me just open up by playing a little
wake
video.
up. Our planet is at a huge risk. We are facing the biggest challenges of all times. Due to climate change, mass extinction, political instability, huge unemployment rates, social unrest, and high uncertainty about the future at a global scale. There are so many challenges in today's world that we need to take action. But there is also a bright future ahead. History has shown us time and time again that there will always be a small group of pioneers, builders, and innovators that can transform the world through their dreams and vision for a better future. The same way we controlled fire and ice to cook and freeze our food to better manage our nutrition, we also harnessed the power of electricity so we could light up our future. We invented boats, cars, and planes so we can travel fast and safe. We controlled advanced chemistry and biology so we can cure diseases and live longer. Through rapid advances in exponential technologies such as artificial intelligence, 3D printing, synthetic biology, and nanotechnology, we are dematerializing, demonetizing, and democratizing energy, food, healthcare, and education to the point where each will soon be accessible to every man, woman, and child, anywhere at near zero cost, and will catalyze a new world full of abundance and prosperity. Yes, we are crazy enough to believe that together we can transform the world for a better future, designing a new type of civilization, solving the world's biggest challenges. So we will do it. We can build new tools. So we will do it. We can design a new type of civilization. So we will do it. Are you ready to transform the world for a better future? Open XO.
I just love the videos. So I play it every time I have the opportunity, and you're the victims here, but it inspires me, the positivity that yes, we can. We've built so many things that we take for granted today, but that gives us an amazing life and fantastic opportunities. We built that through generations, and we can solve those problems that we are facing. We can do it as a community. So I just enjoy this video. I think it's also important just to quickly remember that we've been evolving for billions of years, right? This is nothing new, and it's going to continue that way for billions of more years, I'm sure. We are not going into that at all. We are going into the technological evolution, because this is where we start to see change happening faster than ever before. And that gives us the opportunities of actually tackling some of the big challenges that we are facing, finding new solutions, new ways of doing things. So that's what I intend to go in first. So let's look at another short video.
It is the year 2000. But where are the flying cars? I was promised flying cars. I don't see any flying cars. Why? 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 Because billions of people all over the world can work together on the web 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't need flying cars, but you will need a different kind of software. It's a different kind of world. You need a different kind of software.
And I just think it's a fun commercial. Just imagine in the year of 2000, right? You're kind of making jokes around, people talk about this crazy thing like flying cars. You guys must be out of your minds. Do something real with your life. Build some good software, buy it even better. So I just enjoy that little video. So let's just have a look at another video here in the year of 2020.
Uber's mission is to ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. We're making a transition from being a company that's all about ride sharing to a company that's a platform for all different types of transportation. One of those is air.
We're living in cities where people live in 3 dimensions in skyscrapers, they work in 3 dimensions in skyscrapers, and you have a transportation grid that's in 2 dimensions. That transportation grid will not be able to keep up with 3-dimensional life, and that's what Elevate is about.
Electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft are really the key to doing what we've wanted to do for many years, and that is be able to overcome the gridlock that's on the ground in the cities.
Skyscrapers change cities by taking advantage of the space above cities. Urban aviation will do the same, and in the process, it will reduce congestion on the ground and make our cities feel more open and more accessible for everyone.
Aerial ride sharing is about combining eVTOL technology, which provides affordable, clean, efficient, and quiet vertical takeoff and landing flight, combining that with the ride sharing platform that Uber has built to get high utilization and load factor into those aircraft.
You would still have those existing ground transportation options, but we would supplement some of the most congested routes in the city with a flight portion. Let's say a car or a bike or some other form of transport takes you to what we call our skyports. You would then fly 5 or 10 minutes over the most congested part of your journey, and when you landed, there would be another form of transportation to take you to your final destination.
In-house, we're building software capabilities that will enable safe operations of vehicles in our network, and then we're looking outside for world-class partnerships with aviation companies who are building the aircraft.
We're developing requirements for our vehicle partners so that they can know how best to design these aircraft to meet the services and needs that our customers have.
Aircraft will be taking off and landing in very densely populated, concentrated cities, in places where real estate's pretty scarce. To be able to do this, we're partnering with some of the world's best real estate owners, developers, and operators to be able to unlock new capacity for taking off and landing aircraft across our cities.
There's a lot that has to happen collaboratively with both the Federal Aviation Administration and our international regulators worldwide. Additionally, community acceptance is absolutely key to getting this product up and running, which means working with the community and working with local stakeholders from day one.
Cities are concerned about congestion and air pollution. Uber is addressing that in a lot of different ways. One of the ways that Uber is doing this is looking at electrification of cities. And if we're going to create a fleet of aircraft, we have to go all electric.
At Uber, we're not only providing a marketplace for millions of riders, we're also working with local and federal governments to build out a network operation center and air traffic management systems to make these flights practical and safe.
This is a whole new transportation system that's being designed from scratch. In 15 to 30 years, cities are going to have so many new degrees of freedom for them to grow while remaining incredibly productive.
Ultimately, transportation has to be shared, it has to be electric, and it has to be in 3 dimensions. And I think we can play a part in that. And I think there are going to be plenty of cities around the world that said, yep, I want that.
So there's a lot to talk about from this example here, but the first thing that strikes me is there's just 20 years between these two kind of commercials, if you like, for two different companies. The first one 20 years ago saying it's ridiculous to talk about flying cars, and I think most people believed that was a ridiculous thing to talk about. And now we have them. I mean, many are still in pilot, so to speak, and testing safety and all these things, lifting capacities being improved and all those things, but we have them as a matter of fact. And as you heard Uber talk about, they're designing their needs, their requirements. This is what we are looking for, guys. If you want to be part of this new ways of managing transportation, three-dimensional, then join us and build these vehicles. And a lot of the leading aviation companies, for example, have started doing that, and they are doing it. And you see some of the names here. They are doing this. The e-hang is one that I always think about when we talk about flying cars, because when we did a 10-week sprint, exactly like we are going to do here in Educate for Life, but I was part of delivering a 10-week EXO sprint to DEWA in Dubai. It's the Electricity and Water Authority in Dubai. And when we, I still remember when we did the Awake workshop, Selim asked out in the audience, so how far do you guys think we are away from actually having flying cars? And this was in Dubai, and most people, by raising hands, seems to think that we're probably 10 to 15 years away. And the reality was, the very same year we did that sprint, the pilot with the e-hang was actually being done in Dubai. So they were testing the e-hang flying car, if you like, as an autonomous taxi unit, right? They were safety testing it, and that was the very same year we did that sprint. So people were 10 to 15 years wrong in their estimate, and even being locals where this pilot was happening. So we have the technology to do this, and we have the ability and capability to actually solve some of our huge transportation problems. So this is why I was just bringing up DEWA, right, because of the e-hang flying taxi. Let's look at another example, another sprint that we have done. So we are just touching briefly down in Bangkok here, and I just saw Carmen joining. Carmen was part of this fantastic sprint. Let me just play a quick video from YouTube here. So this is really in real estate development sprint, where we saw the client actually playing with drone technologies, because they realized the importance of involving transportation into the design of our urban life. Urban living is not just about living, it's about getting around, it's about handling supply chains and all of these things. And in this pilot case here, this was about demonstrating the evacuation of a human being by use of drone technology. And this is also part of the approval process, being allowed to fly in urban areas. I'm not going much more into this particular case, but just saying that we are starting to see quite a number of real estate developers that are seriously working on the drone ports, heliports, that allows these drones to land on buildings in urban areas as well. Very exciting. developments that will provide the infrastructure to really make all this happen. So it's all happening. Let me just give an example here, also where the drone technology starts to play a role in solving big problems. And this is an example from farming. The implication that I'm touching on here is the aerial cargo delivery. So the same drone technology can transport cargo as well as human beings, obviously. The opportunity is created because, to the large extent, of machine learning, 5G, artificial intelligence, GPS, these digital technologies that when they converge, they suddenly allow you to create whole new types of solutions. In this particular example, and this is from Abundance 360, by the way, this example. In Africa, small farmers lose 90% of the financial value of their crops to middlemen who transport to market. That means that the financial benefits of the hard work in farming is essentially lost by the farmers to a large degree. Now, what if you create aerial transportation services that handles the transportation of your produce of fresh crops, take it from your farm as a farmer to the market that bids the highest, right? Here you can consider marketplace ideas. You could even go into cryptocurrencies and add an abundance of additional technologies and experiment with different business models to solve a huge financial problem for farmers, in this case in Africa. But this is as relevant in most other parts of the world, isn't it? And this is now enabled by these technologies that we see dramatically accelerating their price performance. So this was, I'll get back to this example a little bit later, so we can kind of lean on this when we start to come up with ideas on how do we leverage the convergence of these technologies. That will be the silent little exercise we'll do very shortly. And you are all very familiar with Moore's law, so I'm not really going into that. Just touching again on the fact that when we see technologies becoming digital, then it jumps right on the back of the Moore's law, right? And it starts to double its price performance year over year over year. And as you can see here, Ray Kurzweil has been documenting that this goes back to the 1900s, and it seems, looking into the future, doesn't seem to stop. And it has given us this dramatic new capability now with a number of different technologies that have become digital and now also jumped on the back of Moore's law, each of them doubling or rapidly accelerating their price performance. And we also now see each of them converging in different constellations. And that kind of becomes super unpredictable. And this is where you can come up with pretty much anything that sounds crazy, but it could be possible. Suddenly it could be possible. So if you put any limitations to your own ideation, I think then you're crazy, right? Because you gotta experiment, you gotta try out all sorts of impossible constellations of these technologies when you look at a problem you want to solve. And that's what we'll be doing in this sprint. We are going to solve huge problems, specifically in the education space for us, but that is a wide area, a wide domain that touches people's lives in so many ways. So I think we need to come in with the most open mind we possibly can. Never say no, just say, hey, what could this lead to? That could just lead to even better ideas. Let's try it out. let's have a look at the next level of ideas that comes out of what we are currently considering. We are seeing all of the technologies here on the screen that have become digital, and that means that suddenly we get surprised of what each of these technologies are capable of doing for us. Let's look a little bit more on the drones and flying cars. That was that part, but the artificial intelligence as well. I'm showing here some screenshots and a little video from a sprint we did in Spain a couple of years ago. This is Sareb. Sareb is the bad bank of Spain. They were created in 2012 by the Spanish government. They were given 15 years to find a way to bring the toxic real estate assets from the financial challenges, bring that to market, find a way to get this real estate to market. But they were given 80 billion euros worth of real estate from the biggest banks in Spain. It was moved into Sareb. They were given 15 years to find a way to get this back to the market. We ran a sprint a couple of years ago now, and as you can imagine, Sareb started to look at, for example, artificial intelligence. We need to mine the data that is everywhere. We need to collect the data, we need to mine the data, we need to analyze it to find out more about the real estate in different areas, different parts of Spain, different types of real estate, different types of buyers, different types of stakeholders, different types of investors, and create scenarios on this. So AI was an integral part of pretty much every initiative that was created by Sareb during the sprint. Drones became a thing as well, because imagine you don't have to live close to your work, which has been how we have lived for years and years, right? We want to reduce our transportation, so we want to live close to work. But what if you could be picked up by an autonomous taxi, flying taxi that picks you up from your beach home in Spain and fly you to the central part of Madrid in minutes rather than hours? So transportation is no longer an issue for you. What does that mean for real estate valuation, right? This could have a profound impact on the valuation of real estate. So then it becomes very interesting for the real estate industry to look into flying taxis and the likes. So that also was part of the sprint here. Now let's look at something that we're all looking at right now and pretty much all day, the $1,000 laptop, right? Or whatever yours cost. So the best prediction, and this is from Peter Diamandis' latest book, it just came out recently. In 2023, a $1,000 laptop will have the same computing power as a human brain, which is 10 to the power 16 cycles per second, which is unbelievable. But if you look at the next prediction, 2050, a similar $1,000 laptop, which would not be similar in 2050, but it would have the computing power compared to all human brains currently on Earth, right? And consider at that point in time, we expect there to be 9.7 billion people on our planet, and probably all connected through satellite technology and in other ways. We all connected. Imagine what our collaboration could do, right? And now with cheap technology in our hands that has the same computing power as all of our brains together. What does that mean for the capability we have for solving problems? And what does it mean for education? What could we do if we start now to create a new paradigm of education where we teach or learn 21st century skills? We learn the importance of being adaptable. We learn the importance of taking leadership. We learn the importance of a beginner's mindset, and we learn about technologies. What could we possibly do in the education space with all of this? I think it's exciting to think about it. So let's do something about it here. Imagine the new paradigm for education that can be created to entirely probably replace the current education systems and give everybody a purposeful, meaningful life where they can contribute and belong. Wouldn't that be amazing? And I think we can do this. I think we can do this. Let's talk a little bit about what we're all looking at these days, right? The coronavirus outbreak that started in China, but has now spread to many countries around the world. It's interesting as the whole process here is being studied, see how human beings obviously detected the virus at some point locally. It was probably not communicated the way it should have been to the rest of the world, right? Hey, we have a situation here. Maybe it was not clear what this was really about, or maybe it was somebody were held back from talking about it. I don't know those details, but it's very interesting to see that an AI built in Toronto spotted this particular coronavirus, that there was a potential outbreak happening in China. The blue dot algorithm predicted that this would happen based on a lot of different data sources, including airline ticketing data and other data sources as well. So now technology has become our friend, right? With that, we can early understand what's happening in other parts of the world, even in our own countries. And we can get help of just sharing warnings that needs to be shared with the rest of the world, because we are a global population now. We travel a lot, we meet each other, we collaborate. That's all amazing, right? But it represents some challenges when suddenly we have these nano viruses that are very hard to detect at first, and when they suddenly happen, they're very hard to stop and prevent people from spreading this kind of virus. So here we're talking about the convergence between artificial intelligence and biotechnology, which is fueling a lot of deep tech companies. They are, by the way, extremely interesting to study. We see a high ratio of unicorns coming out of deep tech for good reasons, because the convergence that they are leveraging is a similar scenario as we are seeing here. In 20 years, we eliminated all the products here that we used to have in our household, and now we all carry this around in our pocket. The same powerful convergence can be applied on any other problem. And in deep tech and in other areas, you now have this possibility of doing this, apply technologies and the convergence of them on all sorts of problems and come up with new solutions. One solution that millions of people are looking at every day, I'm sure, is this. This is the data coming from the blue dot algorithm that, and here combined with the dashboard, which is available live, where you can follow the coronavirus. This was, I just screen dumped this morning, where you can see more recent data. I'm happy to share the link to this, but you would see the link, I'm sure, all over the news. Isn't this an amazing place to keep each other informed about what's the current status of a problem that is getting out of hands for the global population? This, I think, is a phenomenal example of also what technology can do for us in terms of both predicting, in terms of monitoring, in terms of prescribing actions that we should take as human beings, and so on and so forth. Here's another example where we this is also very deep tech related, where a deep learning model is really trained to predict antibiotics based on the structure. So now you have technology to figure out how do we kill these antibiotic resistant bacteria that in the past we haven't been able to do anything when we came across these bacteria. Now technology is helping us to solve this problem as well. So let's just look quickly at virtual augmented reality.
To the world. But that's a little sad. I mean, that almost tells me that our current system is broken, because if we have already selected the best people in the world, the smartest people, the most, the one.
I'll stop it here. But obviously, who else but educators would move a whole conference into VR? I wish we would be doing that. This session here today, we are not. We're using old-fashioned 2D communication technology. But we are going to do something about that. We have Nick van Breda joining us next week in a call, and he's going to take us as deep as we want into VR and other relevant technologies for the future of education. Nick is co-organizer of the Educators in VR Summit. So he can tell us a lot about the solutions that are being used, the limitations right now, but the opportunities also of moving entire events into the virtual space. And speaking of the coronavirus that is canceling one conference after another, limiting us from exchanging knowledge and from learning from each other. These technologies are helping us to get online and continue our collaboration, our learning, and our productivity. Like we are seeing a great example of in China, where almost overnight, right, millions of people started to work from home, study from home, rather than go to work, go to school, simply because there is no other option until this has passed. It's not been, the daily way of working and studying, but now it has to be that way for a period of time. That has challenged the infrastructure for sure. The telecom companies have been upgrading big time on short notice, and people could now work and study from home, like many are used to. But now this is like 50 million people that has to stay in their homes for a period of time, right? So that's one more example where maybe suddenly we don't have the option and the freedom that we are used to. Maybe for some reason we suddenly pushed down a certain route in life, and hopefully we can find ways of leveraging technologies to help us do what we want to do. our lives. On Tuesday, the 3rd of March, we have Nick van Breda, as I said, to join us in a 1-hour community call. He's going to take us much deeper into the future of tech in education. I had the pleasure working with Nick on a sprint, also with the Sasson Business School in Thailand. So Nick is the most hands-on guy when it comes to these technologies. So he's going to talk us through what's happening, what's the latest, the greatest, the limitations, whatever they are, and the opportunities in this space. So save your technology questions for Nick and join on the 3rd of March. The time you see here is Central European time. You can see your own time zone when you log into the events section. All right, this is just to say from 23rd of February what we are starting to see, that when a virus gets out of hand, this can have profound consequences, massive consequences to our economy. Our global supply chain is being affected. We see now stock indexes suddenly being hit. So we don't know what that will lead to and what the outcome is going to be. It depends, obviously. But there's a lot of technologies and trends, new ways of living, new ways of producing food, as in this example of vertical farming, and this has been in the making for quite a long time, and then a lot of experimentation is going on. And I think that's going to be important, that we are not relying as much on global supply chains, but I think what we are seeing is a strong trend of trying to create local communities that can self-supporting communities, self-sustaining communities when it comes to energy, food, water, and other areas. I travel quite a lot. I see exciting projects of vertical farming. I've seen them in Shanghai, in Sao Paulo. I see them many places, and also projects that are growing in size and really becoming an alternative to supply chain that we used to rely on. I think this is going to be important for us in the future, that we develop these capabilities and these solutions. So this is where we are today. We are coming from a point of disappointment in most technologies. This is something, I have a background in Gartner, the IT analysis company, so I worked a lot with the hype cycle, and I really believe much in that, in those studies, in that research that has been covering hundreds of technologies for many years, showing that each and every one of them are facing this peak of inflated expectations. It hits the trough of disillusionment. Some technologies will never make it through that trough, but the ones that do will need some time to get to the plateau of productivity, right? And that's when we are starting to see the value that we're hoping to see from a certain technology. But what we are seeing here is when we digitize a technology, as we talked about earlier, in the beginning it's deceptive. The way it's doubling its performance, its price performance is deceptive, but it is doubling. We're just not really noticing those small doubling steps until we get to a point where suddenly the performance of a technology becomes disruptive. It becomes an unexpected capability that allows you to do things you never could with this technology before. After the disruptive phase, this is where you begin to realize that the fact that this is a digital technology, it's bits and bytes, and when it's information based, that means that you begin a process of dematerialization. You can bring what used to be a physical product into an online service, right? Into a data center somewhere. You can create something that replaces a lot of the traditional products that was not digital. So the dematerialization will lead at some point to demonetization, when the marginal cost of adding more is close to zero, or maybe it is zero. Now you can actually make a service available to the world. You can make it super affordable. You can, in many cases, hopefully make it free to use. And when it comes to educational offerings in the future, wouldn't it be amazing that everybody could have access to the best insights and advice and learning, have it at their fingertips when they need it? And that is the democratization stage. And this is an important curve to remember, because you may be looking at technologies that are still at the deceptive phase. But if you can kind of give an estimate like Elon Musk does, he looks like 10, 20 years out in the future and says, I want to intersect this curve right here. And by the way, maybe I see several technologies that are converging at this point in time. At that point, I want to be ready to provide a certain new service. Could be the colonization of Mars, couldn't it? To give what I find to be an extreme example, but it could be pretty much anything else. And that strategy, I would call it, to look into the future and give yourself a target based on the knowledge you have on the technologies today and what people, the advisors around you in the world, are telling you to expect. Give yourself a target. Where do you want your service to be launched? What are the capabilities at that time? And then go for it. Begin your experimentation as you advance up on this curve. I believe that technology is going to change almost all industries. It will create opportunities for micro entrepreneurs in a massive way. And many of us are micro entrepreneurs, and we need to educate a whole lot more micro entrepreneurs. We need to do it at a big scale, and the skills and mindset required to actually do this, actually be a micro entrepreneur, will be different from what we learn in our schools today. We need new skill sets, new mindsets. This is why we are here, guys, right? That's to figure out how do we spread the 21st century skill sets and the mindset that this takes. How do we spread that? How do we spread the methodologies? And how do we take the lead on creating new services that will help transforming the education space? I was just a few days ago watching this interview with Binny Bansal. He's one of the co-founders of Flipkart in India. I would call Flipkart the Amazon of India. I don't know if Flipkart likes that. By the way, they have now a majority stakeholder in Walmart, but they're in many ways, I think, comparable to Amazon in they started out selling books online, and then they evolved to selling pretty much anything else online. And last year they booked $6 billion of revenue. So it's a kind of organization that you want to watch, and you want to watch these guys as they continue to develop Flipkart. And what Binny here said, he was asked about the reasons for their success, and he's talking about the mindset of discovering, learning, and risk-taking, and the combination of these. This was the recipe to success. And I have not built a $6 billion revenue company yet, but I would totally agree that these are key ingredients in anything in the future. Whatever you want to do, you need to be having the mindset of discovery, learning, risk-taking, because the biggest risk is probably not to experiment, not to try to discover. So let's just look at and reflect a little bit on all of this. When this particular newborn, and I don't know this fellow here, but he looked lovely. So I wanted to use him as example. When this newborn turns 8 years old, then computing power is 21 times better, very likely. And Internet of Things sensors 128 times better. Brain imaging solutions resolution 120 times better. Drones 665 times better. Medical knowledge 1 trillion times more, and hopefully better as well, and so on and so forth. This is a profound change from where we are today, which is already pretty advanced, but this is certainly going exponential. But when it comes to the education space, we have these opportunities, but we have lots of huge challenges to look at. We have quantity-based challenges, we have quality challenges. On the quantity side, UNESCO estimates that by 2030, the world will need 69 million teachers. And when we look at already today, 263 million children worldwide lack access to even basic education. So this is definitely something we need to address together with everybody else that are probably already working on this or is going to. But we also have quality challenges. And we talk about this a lot, how our educational systems were really designed for the industrial age, where we needed a large number of people who had the same skill sets, the same knowledge, so they could perform in the same function day in and day out, follow instructions and these things. And that's not the world we live in anymore, or we are at least transitioning out of it very, very fast into a new world where we need to find a new role for ourselves. And there can be many reasons for the dropout rates that you see on the screen here. And this is not the only one, but I'm sure it's a strong contributor. The US alone sees 1.2 million students drop out every single year. I think a lot of students are bored. I personally was super bored, at least until I got to university and could finally study what I really wanted to study. And even then, maybe you feel like, hey, let me explore something else in life, right? Life is a playground and we can always catch the next opportunity. So it's very hard to keep students on board if you're an educational institution today, for many other reasons as well. These are just a few of the huge challenges in the education space. One of my recommendations for reading is Daniel Pink. And here's a quote of Daniel: "Human beings have an innate inner drive to be autonomous, self-determined, and connected to one another. And when that drive is liberated, people achieve more and live richer lives." And I fully agree to that. I strongly recommend Daniel Pink's books, and he has a lot on YouTube. Go check him out if you haven't done already. What I feel inspired to do now is work here on a little session, a little exercise to figure out how do we help human beings to become autonomous, self-determined, and connected to one another. Because it's not as straightforward as you may think. Maybe you live that life already. I live that life already, I feel, but most others are probably stuck in a system, in a community, in a paradigm where they cannot just be autonomous, self-determined, and connected. Something is expected of them that they are not really passionate about. So with some of the technologies we talked about, or you can add other technologies that comes to mind in this little exercise. Let's do this exercise now. And I'm going to just give you the exercise now, tell you what we will do, and then I want you to go to, this is on our community platform, but I posted a direct bit.ly link here to help you out to find the right place to go to. So in just a moment, I'll spell it out to you where I want you to go in terms of opening your browser. But first, let's do a little exercise, a disruption exercise. And let's consider the farming example I gave earlier on the aerial cargo delivery. That was the implication. I want you to consider another implication or innovation. And I want you to consider the opportunity in that. I want you to think about creating a service that helps humans live their life autonomously, self-determined, and connected to one another. What I want you to do is pick minimum 2 technologies. You can pick more technologies. You can pick any of the technologies I show on the screen here. I'll show it to you again in a moment. You can pick other technologies as you like. You can pick more than 2. And then think of an idea from top of your head that could help people to live their life autonomously, self-determined, and connected to one another. And consider what problem you're solving for people by doing it. I'm not going to ask you for implementation plans or viability. Don't worry about it. Let's just play here with ideas. So now I'm asking you to go to the website I show here. I'll paste this in the chat now, so you can just hit the link and go there. It's on bit.ly and then Awake exercise. So let me just put it in the chat. And then we'll go and play there. So when you click this link, you will be taken to our community platform, and I'll just bring it up here and share that screen. When you click the link in the chat, you'll be taken to our community platform here, which we all love. I certainly do. And what you see here is under featured, but you'll be taken directly to it if you click the link in the chat. You will see this Awake session community exercise. I described the little exercise here as well. And then I want you to go to the comments section below and write here your idea. Mention the technologies that come to mind that will help you and your service to help people live their life autonomously, self-determined, and connected to one another. And I know for some it's super late now, so I hope you have more coffee ready for some it's still super early morning. So I hope you're up for playing a little bit here. I've been talking a lot, so maybe what we'll do is not to do a silent exercise, but open up the mics and brainstorm out loud. And then based on the brainstorm together, you can put in your brief description of the opportunity that you see to help people out there. How do you feel about that? Should we open up the mics and brainstorm a little bit? But keep them coming in the chat, in the comments field. Yes, Carol, definitely. So I'll leave you to this little exercise and to have a bio break if you need that. So I'll stop talking. We'll do it as a silent session first. So be back in 10 minutes. And then we'll do a quick brainstorming, opening up the mics, have a chat about this, and come up with some crazy ideas. Have a bio break, be back in 10 minutes. And when you're ready for it, post your ideas in the comments section here in our community platform. See you in 10 minutes.
Lars, before you go, can you flash up the slide with the different technologies again?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
If you click the link, Jabine, in the chat, you'll be going to this page where you see it. I pasted it in here already. So you see the technologies?
Yes, yes, got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Lars, did you want one or two?
Just one idea is great. Okay, great. If you feel like, hey, I'm unstoppable, I have two ideas, I would love to see them. Thank you, Crystal, for sharing this link. Off you go to the bio break and speak to you in 5-10 minutes. I'll put on a little bit background music, I think. job, everybody. Another 3 minutes, then we'll start with Scott's brainstorm around. Scott. All right, let me stop the background music here. I think it's time to hear some of your voices instead. I'm very excited about all the ideas that are popping up here and the comments and the conversations going on. This is a way of working that I think we can leverage a lot more when we do sprints and when we do virtual collaboration. In a matter of minutes, actually, the collective creativity and brain power can come to play here and give us something of great value in very short time. So this is awesome. I'm very keen to hear. While please keep posting ideas also after the session here. Keep it coming. It's a fun trail of ideas, not just fun. I think there are some excellent ideas in here. They could feed into the sprint. If any of you want to kind of actually work on some of these ideas, that's what we have the sprint for. But I'm keen to hear from any of you, very creative people on the call. Let me hear a bit more about your thoughts on the idea that you're posing, maybe some of the feedback that you received already, and how that maybe leads you to change direction, maybe, or maybe you get your idea kind of confirmed and you get even more eager to actually do it. What are your thoughts around your idea? Anybody who wants to say a few words around what you've been doing here in this exercise? Or are you busy writing? I hear a lot of ding ding, so I think there's a lot of writing being done.
So Lars, maybe I can start?
Yes, please, Carol.
Okay, maybe I can share my experience in Malaysia education. In Malaysia education, what we face challenges are some of the class sizes are very big. Class size, it can go up to 40 to 50 students a class. So therefore, they always have a challenge. One of the key challenges is teachers not able to provide differentiated learning, because every child in the class would have a different learning ability, and therefore, in Malaysia school system, we tend to stream them from the beginning. Means if you are good students, you will go to one class. If you are not so good student, you will go to one class. So we find that is not good because it creates a stigma on the child at very early stage. That means they know that they are not good. And therefore, we also found that it actually aggravates the problem even more. That means they will feel so inferior, and that therefore they will quickly lose interest in learning. So I felt that it would be good if we can find a solution that actually stop this kind of stigma. So therefore, one of my proposed idea is to make it easy for the teachers, is to provide a system. And of course, this system can help to scale it. That means provide more opportunities to students who do not have access to quality school system. Because we do have situations where some of the students are living in a very remote area. They have to like travel on boats to get to a school. And if we can, use better technology, with 5G, hopefully it can help to bring about some change in the education, at least in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So that was the idea that I have.
You're bringing up some severe problems. You're nailing something definitely. This is a problem globally. There's no question in my mind. We do the same in many schools in Denmark. Even today, it's still you're being put in a particular class based on an average score or something else. You're either in the A team or the B team or in the special class, and everybody's afraid of being put in the wrong kind of class, right? It's about prestige. It's about you don't want to lose your face, and almost regardless of which class you end up in, it's still classroom teaching and it's still not personalized learning. So you're not really, I don't think you're solving any problems by actually doing this. And I think it's being done everywhere, pretty much around the world. So the whole thing about also personalized learning, you're using machine learning here and so on. I think that is a very strong way to create an individual support system around each student, right? Which is not limited to what a human teacher can deliver, although the human teacher can provide a lot of great support and value as well. But I think also for those in remote areas and those that just doesn't go along with the teacher, that you can actually progress and advance your own learning even without human interventions. So I think there's a lot of potential in this. Great, Carol. Have you been researching on this before? Are you looking for in the market to see if there's...
Very good question. At one point, when I was with the government, helping the government in this, right, we wanted to build a system that actually let the students, you assess and then you determine, and the system, we didn't say the system will provide your learning path, but it provides suggestion.
Yeah.
So you will pick and choose, and then you work out your own learning path, your progress.
Yeah.
So, and at that time we were thinking about more of skills rather than technical content. That means skills such as thinking skills, analytical skill, creative skill, and communication skills. And also eventually you progress into something that you can decide to work on a project also. And then there will be a portfolio of projects that you do that show how you apply these skills. And we were trying to work with a global education body to certify, to make it like after you've gone through this process, you will actually can be accredited for maybe a master first level or a graduate a fresh graduate level 1, year 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were working towards that, but it's very costly to build the system at that time.
Yes.
I think about maybe now about 8 years ago, we were looking at it. And
8
at that
years
time,
ago. Okay.
8 years ago, and we, of course, at that time we didn't consider AI, that kind of thing. But I think now it can be made possible with a lot more enhancement to the features and capabilities. And I think it's also easier to be rolled out now with the access to greater communication network. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yes. Yeah.
But I wish I can work on it, but I just have not worked on it yet. But this is the idea that we have.
Okay. Okay. you might be able to reach out to people from the original project back then and say, hey, let's do some research on this, what it could look like today, right? And bring them into the sprint, Carol. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I will go and find a sponsor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Actually, I was trying to, hopefully I was able to, reignite this project with the new government. But I'm not sure whether, over the weekend, there was so much changes, and maybe let the dust settle down, and I will maybe try another time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe now is that other time. Maybe now is the time. And that could be something interesting happening in the market in this area. I'm sure there is. So doing the research on what is actually happening could be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, Carol.
Anybody else? Carol, I love this idea, and I think it's so important everywhere in the world, as Lars says. It's such a big problem, and I think so many children are dropping out, falling through the cracks, bored out of their mind because the way the lessons are taught don't speak to them, and they're being, as you say, they're assessed and they're put in a certain group, and that's it, and they're labeled for life, and this scars them for life in everything they do. I mentioned in the notes, there's a company based here in the UK called Century Tech, who's using AI. It might just be worth having a look at their website. They're using AI to help teachers assess the children at the beginning of the year in their class, and then make it easier for them to teach the lessons to each kid in the way that they understand it best. So from what I understand, I don't know all the details, but if someone learns better in visuals, they can learn the lesson that way. If someone's more a number person, it speaks to every child, so nobody will fall through the cracks. That's what her whole goal, the founder of this company, was. So it might be worth just checking them out.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the idea.
Yeah. That is so exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look forward to learning more about them as well.
Great.
Excellent. Who would like also to just bring their idea to the surface here for a quick debate?
I'll just make a kind of a meta observation. I think it's interesting you gave us the challenge to take the Dan Pink idea and realize it in some form with tech, like connecting together. We all began going towards education. You didn't give us the education challenge, you gave us a different challenge, but we're all wired up and ready for this Educate for Life sprint. So I think we're ready to go.
We are hungry. Yes.
We're hungry. Yes. Let's do this.
Give us the education challenge. Exactly, Kurt.
I have a quick comment, Lars. It's interesting that I was also trying to catch up on, what everybody has been, putting down and all of that. And it's about the schools, it's about, the learning processes and the experiences. But nobody has really talked about teachers. Yeah. In where I come from, I think a huge problems are our teachers, the quality of the teachers. The teachers are going through school, they don't know whether they're actually disseminating content, whether they're coaching students, whether they're mentoring them, whether they're really helping students to become adults one day. And also the way of teaching is that they teach students what they learned maybe 20 years ago, and then they pass it all the way down. And then there's all these new, subject matter and content, and obviously teachers go back for their to be upgraded all the time, but really the basic quality of the teachers seems to be, it's a big problem in the part of the world that I come from.
It's a very important addition to the conversation, Carmen. Very important, because I think to a large extent we are being formed as individual by the people who are teaching us, right? We're talking about many years in the early part of our life, and so it's very formative what's happening there. And if we are, nobody, the teacher doesn't choose the students, and the students are not choosing their teachers. So but there should probably be a matchmaking based on whatever criteria to make sure that you're being teamed up with somebody that can kind of help you acquire learning skill set that is the right for you, right? But that's not where we are, unfortunately. So you are being put in a classroom with a teacher that was kind of educated based on a model and a system that was created decades ago, and teachers are still being trained in the same way for classroom teaching to a large extent, and a little bit maybe today more also on individual support and so on. But I fully agree. I meet some amazing teachers. I'm privileged, I think, when it comes to that. But I also still meet a huge number, and I meet a lot of teachers, and I love teachers, but many of them have no clue about psychology, about that some kids are introverts, some are extrovert, and lots of other personality factors that play into how you learn and how I can best support you. And this is what becomes a bad teacher definition very easily, at least, right? They're teaching what they are being hired to teach you, but they can do it in many better ways, but they don't in many cases. That's my personal observations, and I'm sure it's not much better anywhere else. So there's something here that has to be disrupted as well. Everybody's a teacher, in my opinion, and that's how we best learn. If we can teach something to others, we learn it. We know that now we learned it, and it's fun to teach when you get the hang of it. And every child should try to be a teacher, but that's not how teaching and lessons are working out in most schools, unfortunately. So we don't have that opportunity to get formal education from everybody around you, so you could pick your teacher. You're being put in a seat, and there's a teacher in front of you. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, Jabin is no, let me say hey. And Javier says Javier is willing to go through all the ideas. Perfect, Javier. Please place your thoughts and your comments to them. That would be awesome. And what else do we have here? Yeah, Jabin. Jabin, do you want to elaborate? You have several comments in the chat.
I was just thinking about this whole notion of the teachers and how do we make sure the teachers are keeping up with the changes? I mean, in the past, like we've had teachers who learned things many years ago that might be obsolete by the time they're teaching the students in the institutions. And so I think I agree, we need to rethink that whole notion of the teacher-student interaction.
Yeah.
And maybe we provide some sort of more personalized, on-demand kind of teacher. I don't know if that's possible to do non-virtually, but virtually, at least in some contexts,
yeah,
we could do that. And then match the style of the teacher to the students' learning needs and learning styles, etc. perfectly.
Can I jump in now?
Please.
So there are lots of conversations, fortunately, as a result of Facebook, Twitter, and the various private and public groups that are great support systems. So there's a lot of sharing of ideas. But what we're discovering is that it is so noisy, and it's very hard to decipher which are the truly good ones to emulate. And if we can find those and at least use those as a springboard that work for the various cultures, that would be amazing. So, for instance, in the music world, we've got Dr. Shinichi Suzuki from Japan. It worked so beautifully, teaching. The belief is that music is a mother tongue. It is a language as well, and we first learn by many of us by listening to the mother tongue, and that's how we pick it up. That's how music education. His vision for music education should start with a child. And it worked really well in Japan. It was brought over to North America, and it had to be altered because the culture doesn't work the same, and it took many years for it to be altered, to be better understood and adapted and integrated. But today, in today's world, it's genius. It's one of those educations that really should be at the heart of everything. It's being used. It's just being released for trumpet now, to start the brass instrument group. It's on piano. So that's an example of one. There's Kodai, there's Orff, and one's about rhythm and energy, the other's about singing and voice, because it's something that's within, it's what you can do with others. It creates I've attached a documentary, a doc that suggests why music and why movement, to solve some of the largest issues at hand in the world. It's definitely time for that. So finding those educations now that best serve humanity moving forward, that then can be shared with the various cultures and adapted so that it best suits the understanding and communication and the ways of that country or of that culture, would be absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely. Awesome. What else do we have here? I'm just looking at Carol's biometric and DNA analysis to determine potential of newborns, and that it's like, it is both thought-provoking, which is good, and yeah, that could be an unlimited potential in doing something really good or really bad with that knowledge, right? I was just about to write here, there is some really interesting research happening to understand if you can really predict our behaviors and our potential based on our DNA. So there's a lot to be explored there. I'm saying it's an edge initiative, Carol. So I'm good to move forward, but it's an edge initiative.
Thank you. But I know you Chinese. They look at your date of birth and time of birth.
Yes. Excellent. All right. Time is flying, and But I'm going to finish reading this obviously after, and I'm excited to see the many ideas and thoughts that came out of this very short little exercise. It's just an example of how much creativity that we really bring to the table when we allow ourselves, when we put ourselves in the zone, in the mental space where we feel creative and where we are allowed to say out also the crazy thoughts that you could probably not say if you're at a meeting at the teachers union, right? But we are not there, and we are here because we want to think creatively. We want to find new ways to solve all these challenges, or some of them, in education, and create a new paradigm. That's what I want to do anyway, and I can see that you're in the same ball game, so that's amazing. I think we are set for a great sprint. We certainly demonstrated today our strength and our capacity and our power when it comes to ideation, and we are going to need that and to further activate that when we start the sprint with the first sprint week, which is next week. So I really look forward to that. Please keep going back to these ideas and feel free to keep comment on them and keep the discussion going. It works pretty well in here on the platform to keep those conversations going. If you want to chat real time, we do have a chat function as well in the platform here. And by the way, I'll save all the chat messages here so we can find our way back to all these great ideas and suggestions of educational institutions and other things to look at afterwards. So I'm going to kind of thank you for playing along in this exercise, which was not really about an educational challenge or anything, but at the same time, it might be about the new paradigm that I think we really need to create to leapfrog, to get out of the paradigm that we have been stuck in for a couple of 100 years, where education has to be done in a certain way, has to be done by someone trained in a particular way. We need to change this, I believe, to really prepare ourselves, our friends, our colleagues, our whole populations for a future which is so different from the past. So I just want to share a few more things here before we wrap up. Let me just bring that up here on my screen. First of all, obviously, this is the handshake, and I think we are developing, by the way, a Wi-Fi high five. So maybe we'll practice that as we wrap up in a moment. But this is also a nice image showing really what it takes to. It takes a village to raise a child, and I think it takes a community to really do something as massive as I think this could be to create that new paradigm for education. I just want to show a quick other example because technology can really have a profound impact on people's lives, and this is also not an educational example in any way, but I think it is an example of how a small piece of technology can have a big impact on an individual human being's ability also to learn in the future and to contribute and to feel that we are living a life worth living, And here's just a personal, it's an emotional expression from somebody who at the age of 19 hears for the first time.
It's like so close. There you go. We're not right over it. Yeah. There you go. It's beeping. So now technically your device is on. Can you tell? Oh, that's exciting. Here, you can put it down for a second. Just get used to the sound. What does it sound like? Do you want to grab some tissue? Oh, Mommy, you're myself cry. Can you hear me? And you hear your voice? Does your voice sound pretty loud? No, not really. Well, that's good. My laughter sounds loud. Yeah, you'll get used to all of that over time. Do you want to hear your husband say something?
I think it's very obvious the impact that a small piece of technology is having in this particular case. I think a similar emotional experience could happen if somebody really gets personalized learning support, educational support, very often for the first time ever. And I think we have the opportunity to create a huge impact on people's lives by actually creating something new for the education space as well. Great. I'm going to skip the introduction to exponential organizations in the interest of time, and I'll cover that on Wednesday anyway in the Align workshop. Let me just fast forward here to some information about the Align workshop. The Align workshop is going to be a virtual session similar like this, of course, but with a different scope. The purpose of that session is to share how the sprint methodology works. How does this sprint that we will be going through, how does that really work? What is expected of everyone? And how do you get the most out of it? What happens in the different sprint weeks? And how are the tools working that we are going to use? All these things is going to be discussed on that session. Obviously, this session will be recorded as well if you are not able to make it live. But I hope you are all able to join so we can again leverage the community here and do some interactive exercises together. I have some new exercises for you for Wednesday, so we get to simulate a whole sprint in a few hours and get the feeling of the sprint methodology. And for some of you, that is going to be super helpful, I hope. And for others of you, you're masters of the process already. And then I hope you will be of great support to the rest of us as we are diving into this 10-week sprint, where we want to come out of it with real impact, with something that can be in a relatively short period of time, be brought to market, be tested on real students out there, whatever we define as a student in each particular case. We want to bring things out there. We want to implement things. and we are going to do something about this. So this is something we'll talk about on Wednesday as well. How do we really design and set ourselves up for success in a sprint like this, and make sure that we involve the whole community around us to get that support, to get advice, to get, you know, other resourceful people to help us in those moments where we really need it. We have a lot of community sessions coming up in the next many weeks with inspiring community members that will jump on a call with us and give us an introduction to areas that are important and useful when we're going through a sprint like this. For example, an introduction to the future of technology in the education space, which we're doing next Tuesday, for example. We're going to do a lot of those sessions, I can tell you, and you're going to love them. So do make sure to visit our events section and join those calls as often as you can. I just want to say also to those who want to be in a sprint team, but they are not yet in a sprint team, we are this week finalizing the team formation. So if you're not hearing from me in the next few days, do reach out to me again, and I'll make sure to introduce you to an amazing team that has some joint interest and alignment around, you know, common purpose, and you want to do the same thing. So you can be in a team that is going to be exciting, also hopefully on a longer term. So I want to finish with a video just like I started with the video. And this is a video with an interview of Elon Musk. So that will be the closing of the session today. But before I play it, I just want to ask if there are any questions or any comments on what we have done today.
I do, but I was waiting for anyone else. So there are lots of sprints possible in different layers, and what I'm up to is huge. So if maybe Jabine and Lars, yourself, if we could have a short session and I can talk to you a bit more about that, that would be really helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, there are many who we can bring on call as sources and such as we move along, but this, yeah, I'm planned to disrupt on a very large scale.
Yeah. Let's schedule a session. I would be happy to do that and explore the ways forward. Definitely, let's do that.
Are you familiar with the book called Players: The Story of Sports and Money and the Visionaries Who Fought to Create a Revolution?
I'm not.
Mm.
Send the link. I would. Yeah.
We're going to do that with music and movement education.
Lovely.
And we want a sprint opening day.
Yeah.
Exciting.
I need
bring in Singularity University, Jabine.
Yeah.
Let's
yeah,
schedule.
That sounds exciting.
Let's schedule a separate talk, and you know, I'm keen to hear more about this. It sounds very exciting. So let's do that. Any questions? Like or comments? Otherwise, I'm going to thank you all, and we've gone a bit over the scheduled time here. But thank you all for playing along here today. And I look very much forward to work with you all again on this sprint in whatever role that you will join in this sprint. Some of you will be coaches, some will advise, some will be in sprint teams. There's a lot of flexibility around it. It is a community sprint, so you can bring a team, you can join teams, you can watch from the sideline, although that is obviously not the way to knock down the walls, but there are all these different opportunities. So do reach out to me during the week to let me know if you would like different roles, if you want help to get introduced to teams and so on and so forth. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for all the comments, all the ideas you have shared. It's been amazing. I loved it. It was all worth it. All the coffee I've been sipping here, fantastic. I'll just play this interview with Elon Musk. It is really inspiring, and I felt this to be the way to close the session for today. So see you on Wednesday, I hope, or one of the other sessions that are coming up soon. Thank you all. Let's roll the video. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lars.
Bye, everyone.
The Earth takes up less than a single pixel in that image.
Yes.
Oh, let's try again.
The Earth takes up less than a single pixel in that image.
Yes.
Appearing as a tiny blue dot.
And you can see it. This is looks like more than a dot, but it is in fact less than a pixel. This is where we live, on a blue dot.
Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of competent religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor, and explorer. Every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there. On a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Everything we've ever known and done is on this tiny blue dot. People also get too trapped in their like squabbles amongst humans, and there's not think of the big picture. And they take civilization and our continued existence for granted. They shouldn't do that. Look at the history of civilizations. They rise and they fall. And now, civilization it's globalized. And so, civilization, I think, now rises and falls together. There's not geographic isolation. This is a big risk. Things don't always go up. That's an important lesson of history. And I wonder how many dead one-planet civilizations there are out there in the cosmos that never made it to the other planet and ultimately extinguished themselves or were destroyed by external factors. Probably a few. It's only just possible to travel to Mars, just barely. It's funny, the universe appears to be 13.8 billion years old. Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. In another 500 million years or so, the sun will expand and probably evaporate the oceans and make life impossible on Earth. which means that if it had taken consciousness 10% longer to evolve, it would never have evolved at all. Just 10% longer. And I wonder how many dead one-planet civilizations there are out there in the cosmos that never made it to the other planet and then ultimately extinguished themselves or were destroyed by external factors. Probably a few. It's only just possible to travel to Mars, just barely. If G was 10% more, wouldn't work really. If G was 10% lower, it would be easy.
That's where everyone you know and everyone you ever heard of and every human being who ever lived out their lives. It's a very small stage in a great cosmic arena.